So if you guys are Scream fans like myself, you will know that Scream 7 has been tumultuous, to say the best. There has been a lot of controversy, a lot of drama behind the scenes with this. And today I want to just talk about kind of some theories that I've been seeing online and which ones I think will be possible. So before we get into it too much, I want to first go over kind of recap you guys. So if you've seen 5 and 6, you know that they introduced a whole new cast of characters, two of which being sisters in Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega. And Melissa Barrera was fired for her comments about a real-world issue, claiming that she made anti-Semitic comments. Now, I'm not picking a side, but I will say I don't believe the actress is anti-Semitic, and I don't think she made anti-Semitic comments. So, honestly, her being fired came out of left field for a lot of horror fans and a lot of fans of the franchise. Now, once she was fired, Jenna Ortega also backed out of the project due to scheduling conflicts, which, if we know anything, that's Hollywood jargon for I'm done. I don't want any part of this. I don't want any part of you because you screwed over my friends. So, yeah, I'm done. And then from there, the movie seemed to, fall apart, and it was not looking good for the Ghostface killer. However, it was revealed a little bit later that they will be getting Sydney back in Neve Campbell. And if you don't know, she was not in the sixth one because they wouldn't pay her what she felt she was worth. And honestly, she deserves to have that bargaining chip because she has built this franchise. She's just as iconic and synonymous with the franchise as Ghostface himself is. So, and that goes to show you, she deserves to have the power and the right to ask for as much money as she wants. She is iconic. And honestly, she's one of, if not my favorite, final girls. So I think it's a shame that she wasn't in the sixth one because I think she deserves to have appeared in every film in this franchise. But that being said, we're past that. We're on to Scream 7, and they got her back for Scream 7. However, the craziest thing is, she's not the only one that, they got back. If you don't know, they're bringing back, kind of a spoiler alert, I guess, but Matthew Lillard, guy who played Steu, the person who played Roman Bridgers, her Sydney's half-brother / the killer of the third one. And they're also bringing back Cotton Weary, which is somebody who was believed to maybe be the killer in the first one. He was sent to jail for the supposed murder and assault of Sydney's mom, but he was found not guilty. He kind of was a little bit of a scummy character, out for himself and money hungry and media starved. But, he did end up dying in I believe it was the third one. Yeah, third one, at the very beginning. So that right there poses a lot of interesting questions as to what kind of movie we're going to be getting. Now, I'm going to be going over some of the theories I've seen online, starting with the previous Ghostface killers will return as AI likenesses, having the villain of Scream 7 using them as a never-before-seen technology in this world, at least, to haunt Sydney. Now, this would be interesting because this would kind of play into the kind of gimmick, I guess, of Scream 3. If you don't know that one, they use a voice changer like the killer always does, but that voice changer could use any voice and it can mimic it perfectly, which is kind of out there for the time that movie came out. But that setting that aside, it was a pretty cool concept, and I could see this AI likeness thing being a real possibility because they could also, Scream has always been very meta and very self-aware, and they kind of make fun of real world happenings, especially in the horror and the movie genre. So using AI likenesses is a big heated debate right now. So that could really spark a lot of opportunity and creativity for the meta-ness of this world. So I think that's a real possibility, honestly. Um, and I think, it's an interesting one because it's hard to say what makes this franchise. Is it the kills? Is it the killer reveals? Is it the mystery? Like, there's so many elements to this. So if you do this with the AI likenesses, it's going to be very interesting to see how you pull it off, because sometimes some Screams, in my opinion, like Scream 6, for example, gets very convoluted and a little bit boring with the killer reveal. So it's pretty unfortunate to see that. So I just hope that if they do this, they use it to their best advantage. And I have a lot of faith, because the director for this movie is the writer for the original, or one of the writers for the original. So, I'm very happy with that. Now, another theory that I have heard is that Martha Meeks will be Scream 7's opening kill. Now, if you don't know who Martha Meeks is, she is the mother of Chad and Mindy. Chad and Mindy were introduced in Scream 5. And, she plays their mom, and she is the sister of Randy. Although she was never really mentioned in the original, or the original 2, she was introduced, and this would be quite an interesting opening kill. And I don't know how I feel about this theory, because, to be honest, I wouldn't really care. I mean, we haven't seen enough of her, and until Scream 5, we didn't even know she existed in this world, so having her be the opening kill wouldn't really do much for me, because she's just not that important of a character for me, personally. The next theory I saw was that Chad and Mindy will be the opening kills of Scream 7. And this would be an interesting thing to do, because if I'm not mistaken, I thought Chad and Mindy were still signed on to the project. And this would be a great way to kind of symbolically kill off the new cast of characters, although that would probably piss some Scream fans off even more than they already are. Because if you don't know, the Scream fan base is kind of divided between like the people that are very upset with the firing of the new actress Melissa Barrera, and the people that don't really care as long as they're getting Sydney back. And it's kind of been a bit of a war. Like most fandoms, there's always got to be some fight and some divide over something. So yeah, that's what's kind of been happening here. And I think this would be a good way of, kind of symbolizing that they're done with that stage of the Scream movies. Although I wouldn't find it believable, because, Chad has survived what is it? Not 5, 50 stab wounds to the chest. So if you're going to kill him, you're going to have to blow him up. I mean, the dude's like Jason right now. He's almost unkillable. And honestly, Mindy too. She's been stabbed a few times. So they don't really seem to be too easy to kill, but I guess we'll see. Another theory was that Gale Weathers will die in Scream 7's opening, which I'm not a fan of this one. I don't know. I think that would be so unceremonious for her. And I know the opening kill is kind of iconic, but at the same time, and it would be a good way to divert expectations. But I don't know. I'm not a huge Gale Weathers fan, but I do think the character deserves to go out on a much higher note than that. If they are going to go out, I mean, we already know they screwed Dewey over. His kill I was never a fan of. I was okay with him dying, but not in the way he did. But yeah, that being said, I don't really like that idea. The next one I saw was that Chad will be Scream 7's surprise Ghostface killer. And I don't really like this one. I don't like this one for a reason, though. I think that, I personally think that Scream 7 should have a great killer reveal. Because Scream 6, like I said, they have a bad killer reveal. And a bad motivation and all this. It's all just the same shit. Scream 5 had an okay killer reveal, but again, it's we've kind of seen it before. So I wanted Scream 7 to be really different. So this theory suggests that Chad should be the killer because of his past trauma. And I say I'm not okay with it, but as I already mentioned in a video I've made, I would be okay with Gale being the main killer because of her past trauma. Now, originally I was going to say Gale or Dewey, but, now that Dewey's been dead, he's kind of off the table. I think it would be really cool to have the twist that I Know What You Did Last Summer recently did. However, number one, actually do it right and do it good and handle it well, but also make it make sense, because Gail has been through so much trauma throughout six or now seven movies that it would honestly make complete sense. Not to mention, she is a media attention, person still. I mean, she said in Scream 5 that she's not going to write a book on the killers as to not give them notoriety, but in Scream 6 she has a book. And then she turns around and apologizes and everything's forgiven, but still, I think it's very like sociopathic behaviors, like doing that kind of stuff to kids that have been getting attacked and harassed. So I think the motivation and the possibility could be there to make it, believable and realistic. However, I think it would be hard for some people to accept that, given how iconic the character is. So it would definitely be a leap, I guess. So it's interesting to say how that would go amongst the fan base, especially what they just did. So I don't know if that'd be the smartest choice. But moving on to the big one, and you guys all knew it. Steu will be Scream 7's surprise Ghostface killer, and he is alive, for this theory at least. So it's been hinted at in multiple Scream movies now. If you haven't known that Steu could possibly still be alive, I know in Scream 6 there's a question mark on the whiteboard in the police station when it's next to his face, whereas every other ghost face it says deceased. And then Kirby and Mindy are talking in the Ghostface Museum next to the TV that supposedly killed Steu. And they talk about, if they think he's really dead and all this other stuff. And they're kind of a voice of the part of the fan base that has been believing that Steu is actually alive. And this is an interesting one, because I always assumed that Steu died in, Scream 1. Because a TV falling on you, sure, I guess you could survive it, but the way they framed the kill, I will say kill because I believe that's how Wes Craven intended it. The way they framed that, it kind of seemed like it was supposed to be pretty final. So I was surprised. I know Steu does make a cameo, or Matthew Lillard, I should say, makes a cameo in Scream 2, but he's just, from what I know, he's just Matthew Lillard. He's just himself. I don't think he's trying to pose as like Steu in hiding, because he's also by Randy, so I feel like Randy would have seen that, or even Sydney. But either way, he is in that. So I think there's a lot of interesting routes you could take here with this possibility. There is a canceled Scream 3 plot that they were going to do, but they canceled it because it was too similar to Columbine, where it would be revealed that Steu was actually the one orchestrating all the killers from his prison cell. And I like that theory, or that idea, I guess, but I also don't, because it kind of brings up a lot of questions, like, Steu is in prison? Why did we not know this? Why did our characters never mention this? Or do they not know? And also, if they don't know, then why don't they know? And that's kind of the whole issue with having him do things like that. I'm not against having him coordinate the Ghostface attacks and kind of working them like puppets from behind the scenes. I actually really like that possibility. But it's when you get into the territory of he's doing it from prison. Okay, how long is he? Why was he in prison? Why is it not known that he's not dead then when the police are writing it on the whiteboard? Because if the main group doesn't know, sure, okay. But of all things, you would think that the cops would at least know that Steu is alive and well and in prison. So I don't know. I think that does a little bit. It makes you go a little bit too far in your headcanon to make it work. But I think there's a way to do it to where you can make it make sense, where he's just been hiding in the shadows and, people think he's dead, but a body never turned up in the original one, so we're not too sure. I mean, there's a lot you could do there. Matthew Lillard's clearly a big draw and a big exciting piece of the franchise that people have been wanting back for a while. So I'm not going to complain that he's back in these movies. anyways, that's just the stuff I've been seeing around. That's my takes on all of it. I think if I had to go with one, really big theory, I would want Matthew Lillard to be alive. I wouldn't want him to be a hologram. I would want him to be alive and kind of coordinating the Ghostface attacks, and maybe even mix in like a Gale working with him type thing. But I mean, that's besides the point. I guess we'll just have to wait and see when the movie does come out. Let me know, what you guys think down below. Let me know which theory you liked. Let me know if you have a theory of your own that maybe I didn't cover or didn't see. Because there's obviously with this franchise limitless possibilities. So there's definitely different ways you can go with it. If you liked what I had to say, be sure to like and subscribe. If you stuck around this long, I really do appreciate it. I appreciate you guys listening to what I have to say, and I really appreciate you guys having conversations with me in the comments, because I love, talking even more about this kind of stuff. So until next time.